Drew Pearson. I've got rather a complicated story for you today, but a terribly important story. It goes into the sort of thing that can touch off depressions. You'll recall that Franklin Roosevelt set up the Securities and Exchange Commission after the last depression to watch the stock market. However, one of the most amazing stock market manipulations has been taking place today right under the nose of the SEC, and the SEC until recently did very little about it. Now, in this kind of an operation, or any kind of stock market manipulation, it's the little people, the little investors, who get hurt. The boys on the inside make the money, but the public loses the money. So in just a minute, I'll report in detail on this complicated but very important stock market manipulation. Now, the mastermind of this stock market operation is a former Berlin investment banker who left Germany with the coming of Hitler. Lived in Australia, China, England. Been in this country about 8 years. I thought you'd like to know something about him. His name is Leopold Silberstein. Rather nice, likable fella. A lot of people sympathize with him because he's a refugee. And in these 8 years, he's acquired an amazing financial empire. First, he bought the Pennsylvania Coal and Coke Company, a little company down here in Pennsylvania listed in the New York Stock Exchange. And he changed the name to Penn-Texas and issued 4 million shares of stock in 5 years. He used that stock to acquire other companies. He acquired, for instance, the Industrial Brown Hoist Company up in Bay City, Michigan, makes locomotive cranes. The Elyria Foundry in Elyria, Ohio, makes iron castings. Hallicrafters in Chicago, which has secret contracts with the Defense Department. Liberty Aircraft Products down in Farmingdale, Long Island, also aircraft contracts with the government. The Colt Firearms Company up in Hartford, Connecticut, which makes just about everything from revolvers to women's lipsticks and cosmetics and so on. The Chandler Evans branch of Pratt Whitney up in Connecticut. The Lowell Insulating Wire Company up in Massachusetts. The Quickway Shovel Company out here in Denver. And Niles Bement Pond, also in Hartford. And the Potter Johnson Company makes turret lathes in Rhode Island. Crescent Company in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And the Penco Oil Company down here in Pennsylvania. Well, all of this was acquired in just 8 years. And a lot of people have wondered how he was able to do this. Well, I can't say that I can give you the answer. In fact, I'm not even sure that his board of directors knows the answer. Incidentally, Silberstein has attracted some very fine directors, though I think many of them are figureheads. As far as I can find out, his operations were legal. He came about by issuing stock, trading stock, borrowing money, and pyramiding loans. At one time, Silberstein paid as much as 27.5% interest to borrow money. He paid this to Ike Schulman of 350 Fifth Avenue on a short-term loan of $1,100,000 for 3 months and 22 days. And he paid this amazing rate, 27.5% interest, because he was so desperate to keep up the payments on stock that he'd purchased in the Fairbanks-Morse Company, which manufactures diesel engines for some of the nation's important railroads. This wealthy family firm, owned by the Morse family, attracted Silberstein's attention. And after only 8 years in the country, he started a very careful, rather successful secret purchase to buy Fairbanks-Morse stock right out from under its chief owners. Now, in doing this, he got the support of one member of the Morse family, Charles Morse, which created an amazing partnership. Silberstein, as I said, is a refugee from Hitler. Charles Morse is one of the few Americans who liked Hitler, thought he was a great man. Morse was even invited to Nuremberg in October 1938 to celebrate Nazi Party Day. And I have here the remarks he made when he returned to New York on October 21, which was just at the time that Hitler was taking over Czechoslovakia and had already taken over Austria. Absolutely wonderful, the things that party has done for Germany, said Morse. You can regiment industry, but you can't regiment happiness, and those people are happy. He said that Hitler was looking fine. Mrs. Morse said she felt honored had been invited to celebrate Nazi Party Day. Well, today the one-time friend of Hitler and the refugee from Hitler have teamed up to take over Fairbanks-Morse from Robert H. Morse, Jr. and the rest of the family. And here's how Silberstein has done it. Again, it's complicated. But he's done it partly through transactions through Swiss banks, which are not subject to SEC regulation. In the United States, he's required to file with the SEC so the investing public will know all about his stock transactions. But in Switzerland, it's different. And here are the manipulations which Silberstein has now belatedly confessed to the SEC. One manipulation featured David L. Subin of Lansdale, Pennsylvania, who's been a director in the Penn-Texas board for some time, who sold 30,700 shares of Fairbanks-Morse stock all the way across the Atlantic to English Continental Limited in London. And English Continental, a firm with which Silberstein formerly had some transactions, he was a member of the firm, worked for them, sold to the Union Bank of Switzerland, and on the same day of that transaction, August the 1st, 1956, Union Bank of Switzerland sold back across the Atlantic to Penn-Texas. Thus, Fairbanks-Morse stock went all the way across the Atlantic and back again. And although that occurred on August the 1st of 1956, the SEC was not notified until March the 14th, 1957. Silberstein claimed he didn't know anything about it, though this was a director of Penn-Texas which transacted this deal. There were other transactions of this kind all across the Atlantic, London, Switzerland, back again, several of them. Devious, roundabout, apparently to get around filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the SEC did nothing about it. Sat on its hands, though it's supposed to police the stock market, until finally Senator Lauschie of Ohio began to investigate. Well, I'll have a further report in just a minute. Now, when Silberstein and Penn-Texas began buying up Fairbanks-Morse, an interesting thing developed. Fairbanks-Morse officials, in order to defend themselves, began buying up Penn-Texas. So each company is involved in a proxy fight against the other. It's like two snakes, each trying to eat the other. And the big question is, which will gobble most of the other first? Well, Penn-Texas has already acquired a probable majority of Fairbanks-Morse directors and has prevented Robert Morse from financing in order to fill some new contracts. But meanwhile, Penn-Texas stock has dropped way down to a new low of $10. Many stockholders bought it at $20. The subsidiary companies have been so drained that Silberstein will have to raise about $18 million in 4 months. Meanwhile, to help him with the Senate and the SEC, Silberstein has lined up a gilt-edged assortment of lawyers, public relations men, directors, wire pullers, and lobbyists. I think you might like to see them. There's Carl McCardle, former assistant to John Foster Dulles. General Julius Klein, former head of the Jewish War Veterans. H. Struve Hensel, former Assistant Secretary of Defense. General Buck Lanham, former aide to President Eisenhower, a very fine man. He's been a director of Penn-Texas for some time. Oscar Chapman, former Secretary of the Interior, one of the finest men I know. I doubt if he knows all of the intricate operations of Silberstein. And Ben Javits, brother of the senator from New York, a Republican, of course. John Bailey, Democratic National Committeeman from Connecticut. And Jack Arvey, the Democratic leader of Chicago. Just about every department of government and every political party has been covered by Silberstein for any eventuality that may come up in the Senate, the SEC, or any place else. Well, for a gentleman who's only been in the USA 8 years, he certainly learned fast. Silberstein went out to Chicago to attend the proxy fight of Fairbanks-Morse, but did not win the first round. A lot of interesting people there: Walter Cummings of Continental Trust, John Cuneo of Cuneo Press, Robert H. Morse Sr. and Jr., and they once owned 30% of the stock and kept control of their company for at least 1 year. Also, Silberstein was there, Jacques Sarli, an associate, but U.S. District Judge Sam Perry impounded the proxy ballots and decided to examine every transaction by which Silberstein had acquired stock to see whether it was legally acquired and legally owned. So this battle of the tycoons will drag on for at least another year. Meanwhile, Morse and Associates are taking double insurance by trying to swallow Silberstein's Penn-Texas company. Now, these proxy battles are extremely interesting development of modern American finance, but they can be dangerous. They're especially dangerous for the little investor who sits on the sidelines. Sometimes they can be dangerous, too, for the big wire puller at the top. For some of the financial tycoons in this battle may topple. And that's what can lead to stock market crashes. That's also why the Securities and Exchange Commission was established, to prevent these things. A commission which in recent years has sat twiddling its thumbs, doing very little about policing Wall Street. I'll have a final word in just a minute. Leopold Silberstein said when he came to America that Americans don't know how to do business. Now, I've defended Silberstein's right to come here, and I shall continue to do so, but I do not defend his business methods. In fact, the big question in my mind is not whether Americans don't know how to do business, but whether Leopold Silberstein is the kind of businessman who helps communism by giving capitalism a bad name.